Okay, we'll get the show on the road here, as we like to say. And I just like to say welcome to everyone. Good evening, and thank you for joining us. I hope everyone enjoyed a wonderful Thanksgiving weekend. I'm Cindy Erickson, tour coordinator with WestWorld Tours, and I'll be facilitating the presentation this evening. Joining me also this evening is our senior tour director, Koral Carpenter, and she's going to be telling you all about the great sights and attractions you're going to see on our Alaska program. Welcome, Koral.
Hi, it's nice to be here with you this evening. Thank you, Cindy. Thanks for joining us, everyone.
Well, we're all anxious to get hear what you've got to tell us about Alaska and the Yukon. But everybody, before I turn the presentation over to Koral, I have a couple of things I would like to go over and mention with you. Starting with our lineup of our upcoming virtual presentations, we've got a great lineup coming up here. October 21st at 7:00 p.m. is our presentation on our Vietnam and Cambodia tour, which is going to be very exciting to hear all about. October 26th at 7:00 p.m., we're going to do our presentation on our Australia and New Zealand tour. And this is a new itinerary for us. It's not a new tour. It's not our first time to Australia and New Zealand by any means, but we have made some changes to the itinerary. And so we have a new exciting itinerary to share with everybody. And then on November 3rd at 7:00 p.m., it's our Women Explorers Tales, Trails, and Tastes tour to Newfoundland and Labrador. Now that presentation is a tour for women only, and we're really excited about it. It's a new tour, and I hope you can join us to hear all about it. Now, if you've missed any of our previous presentations, we have them available for viewing on our website at westworldtours.com. So if you happen to miss anything that we've done in the past, by all means, go to the website, check it out. They're all there waiting for you to watch. Now, if you would like to receive invites to our future presentation, as well as timely information on our tours, we do recommend that you sign up for our email newsletter. And I'm going to launch a poll onto the screen right away here, asking you to let us know if you would like to receive our email newsletter. You won't be inundated with emails, and you can unsubscribe at any time. There may be a few more emails than normal right now because we are keeping everybody informed on our virtual presentation series. So give me 1 second here, and I'm going to launch that poll here. Here we go. So you can sign up for our WestWorld Tours newsletter. You can sign up for just our Women Explorers newsletter. You can sign up for both Women Explorers and WestWorld Tours newsletter. And if you're already receiving it, that's great. Just let us know that as well. Just give everybody a couple minutes here to finish their selections. And okay, it does look like everybody that is viewing has done their selection. So thank you very much, everybody, for letting us know. Now, again, if you are viewing us on Facebook, I guess you're not, but we can't get Facebook going tonight, but you can send us a quick email at information@westworldtours.com, and we can get you signed in for our newsletters as well. So, questions. We encourage you to ask questions at any time throughout the presentation. That being said, we do have everybody on mute, and we ask that you type your questions into the Q&A box located on your screen. And we welcome your questions, and we will answer as many as we can get to at the end of the presentation. WestWorld Tours is proud to have provided refunds in full to all of our travelers that were affected by canceled tours due to COVID-19. After all, you should decide when and where you want to travel, not us. It is your money. And having your travel plans canceled was disheartening enough. COVID-19 has changed today's world, and WestWorld Tours remains committed to the well-being and safety of our travelers and team. We are doing all that we can to adapt to the new requirements and expectations and have enhanced our already robust health and safety protocols to keep everyone safe while traveling with us. We ask that you visit our website for the most up-to-date COVID-19 information and travel policies. A little bit about WestWorld Tours. I'm sure many of you watching this evening have traveled with us before and you are familiar with us. But for those that haven't traveled with us before, or maybe are tuning in for the first time on one of our virtual presentations, we'll just let you know a little bit about WestWorld Tours. And we are, as Western Canada's premier tour company, WestWorld Tours has been serving Canadians from coast to coast with escorted travel throughout North America and around the world. We celebrated our 20th anniversary last year, presenting quality components, including modern, comfortable coaches, professional tour directors, experienced, courteous drivers, baggage handling, and excellent accommodations. We take in all the important sites and attractions and include several meals throughout the tour. Thousands of travelers have chosen our first-class style of touring, enjoying the great value, security, and stress-free environment, all while making new friendships along the way. We know our tour directors enjoy getting to know you while on tour, and they love to see familiar faces. I swear, Koral, I've been with her on many places, and all of a sudden she'll say, oh, there's so-and-so, and someone comes up and gives her a big hug. So we know she loves to see those familiar faces. And speaking of familiar faces, I'm going to launch another poll right now. And we're just curious how many watching this evening have traveled with WestWorld Tours before. I'm just going to give me a second here to get that launched, and we're anxious to hear from you. So here we go. There, so you can let us know if you have traveled with us before. Give you all a chance to respond. All right, it looks like we have about 67% of the viewers this evening have traveled with WestWorld Tours, and 43% have not traveled with WestWorld Tours yet. So that being said, those that have not traveled with us before, welcome. We really look forward to meeting you on board one day. And to those that have traveled with us before, welcome back. We look forward to seeing your familiar faces on board again soon. So thank you again for participating in that. Now, without further ado, let's move on to our Alaska and Yukon program for the summer of 2022. Immerse yourself in the serenity of the rugged landscape and stunning scenery of Alaska and the Yukon in the summer of 2022. Discover the history of one of the world's most famous highways. Visit famous gold rush towns, see the wildlife, glaciers, ice-capped mountains, and much more. Our tours to Alaska and the Yukon are all scheduled, again, as I said, for the summer of 2022. And Koral will go over the individual tour dates with you shortly. So it is my pleasure to introduce everybody to Koral Romanchuk. Koral has been with WestWorld Tours for over 20 years, having traveled the globe extensively, setting foot on all 7 continents, bringing to her role as senior tour director a wealth of knowledge and experience. I know Koral has spent many a summer up in the Yukon and Alaska with our tour groups, and she is excited to tell you all about her experiences and our tours. So take it away, Koral.
Thank you, Cindy. Thank you so much for the lovely introduction. I just want to say a big welcome to every one of you joining us here tonight. It is an absolute pleasure to have you with us this evening. And truly, the tour to Alaska and the Yukon has been a favorite of mine for a long time. In various capacities, the vast majority being with WestWorld, I have made 20 trips now up to Alaska and the Yukon. And every single time I have been there, I'm just as excited to go back as I was the time before. So So I have to be honest with you, I've been looking forward to this presentation for a long time. In fact, I've kept asking, when are we doing the Alaska Yukon presentation? So it was really, really important to me to be a part of the show this evening. So I am so happy to have each one of you joining me for the show tonight. And we'd be so happy to have you join us for the actual tour. As Cindy said, we have a few different dates and three different tours that we're looking at. We're going to be focusing on the Alaska All Coach Tour. You see the dates in front of you there, June 9th to 28th. You can do a shorter version of the tour as well, called the Taste of Alaska, which is only 13 days. You have the dates in June into early July there on the right-hand side of your screen in the bottom corner. And then a tour that I love very, very much as well too, and I've had the pleasure of guiding it several times, is our Alaska and Yukon cruise and coach combination tour. That one also 20 days in the month of June and into early July. The month of June is a fantastic time to go to the Yukon and Alaska, and I just wanted to speak to that for a moment as well too. There's a few different reasons for that. One is the weather's usually really consistent. In 20 times going up north to the Yukon and Alaska, of course I have had some years with more rain, but typical is actually a lot of sunshine, beautiful days, usually, maybe 21, 22 Celsius, just really nice temperatures and lots of sunshine. So weather's typically consistent. As the summer wears on farther into July, the bugs, the insects definitely tend to get worse. That is another reason why we love going up in the month of June. And then the greatest reason of all that we do our tours at that time of the year is because it is indeed the land of the midnight sun. And there's nothing quite like experiencing daylight at midnight. It is incredible. I have so many times, been up at midnight in Dawson City up in the Yukon, and my guests are marveling, like, can't believe how late it is and the sun is still shining. So it's really incredible experiencing the land of the midnight sun. So the month of June is a fantastic time to go. And so I really wanted to mention that as well. Thanks, Cindy. All right, carrying on now, we'll go back to that map slide again that you had up. That's fantastic. So this just gives you a little bit of a look at what we do on the shorter Taste of Alaska, the coach and the coach and cruise tour, yes. And then on the left-hand side of your screen, the one that we're kind of going to be focusing on primarily, which is the all coach tour. So not a lot of overlap even on that tour. You get to experience all of the history and the incredible beauty of the Alaska Highway, and we'll touch briefly on that too, on both the coach and cruise tour and the Taste of Alaska and the all coach as well. The nice thing on the all coach tour is we don't come back the exact same route. We actually take the Cassiar Highway through northern BC. My experiences on the Cassiar Highway is it's one of the best parts of the tour for spotting black bears too. So that's definitely the experiences that I've had. So a little bit different scenery, but it's nice that you're not, you're doing very little repetition of the roads that you're traveling on with the all coach tour as well. This screen here in front of you now just lists off some of the tour highlights. I mentioned the Cassiar Highway through northern British Columbia. The White Pass and Yukon Railroad, oh, we're going to get to that because I want to tell you more about that. Cindy mentioned I have been very blessed to travel on every continent, and I still rate that trip, the White Pass and Yukon Railroad, is some of the most fabulous scenery I have been anywhere in all of my travels. So it is extraordinary. It really is. Riverboat Discovery is so much fun. We'll talk about that too. That happens in Fairbanks. Of course, we have a lovely salmon bake dinner, a fun show that we go to in Fairbanks called the Golden Heart Review. On the all coach tour, we do a absolutely stunningly beautiful one-day cruise of Prince William Sound, the Watson Lake Signpost Forest. That's another another great story I'll be sharing with you. Of course, you have to try your hand at gold panning. If you're going up to the Klondike, we do that. Diamond Tooth Gerties, you get to see the can-can dancers up at Dawson City. The Midnight Dome is a very special overlook, and we'll talk about that as well. That's up in Dawson City. Fort Nelson Museum, a great stop as well too. City tours, including Dawson City, Fairbanks, and also beautiful Anchorage, Alaska as well too. Farewell dinner picnics. That's another thing that we get to do in June that's pretty special. And of course included porterage as well. It's pretty hard to not be enthusiastic about this tour. I can't help it. So here we go, everyone. We are officially starting now. In the top left-hand corner of your screen, and also the lower left side of your screen as well, you're looking at the signs for the Alaska Highway Mile Zero, and that is Dawson Creek, British Columbia. So we do stop in Dawson Creek. We don't spend the night there, but we stop there on our way heading from Edmonton up to Fort Nelson. There's a lot of history behind the construction of the Alaska Highway. I think that goes without saying. And it is some really, really interesting history. You're going to learn a lot about it while you're on our tour. But just a few things. I guess you could say that Pearl Harbor was one of the catalysts behind the beginnings of the construction of the Alaska Highway. But the decision was made to build the Alaska Highway, and it was approved by President Roosevelt in February of 1942. By the beginning of March, construction had begun on the Alaska Highway. The Americans took care of the cost, and the Canadians provided the right of way. They basically said, yes, you can build it through Canada. It was also sometimes called the Alcan Highway as well, too. And Mile Zero is at Dawson Creek. Officially, the Alaska Highway ends at mile 1422 in Delta Junction. Of course, there's a similar sign there, and of course, we stop for a picture of that sign as well too. Unofficially, the Richardson Highway is part of the Alaska Highway, and that carries on from Delta Junction, Alaska to Fairbanks, Alaska. So there you go. That's just a few things. The sign in the top left-hand corner of your screen is built quite literally right in the intersection. So it's a great sign, but it's not the safest place to take a picture. So the one in the bottom left-hand corner, well, that's a good one too, because that one is actually next to the visitor center, and that's a much safer place for a photo. And in fact, it's quite common that we do a group photo under the Alaska Highway sign. And it's pretty exciting. You know, we know we're embarking on this amazing journey when we get there. We do overnight in Fort Nelson as well. We stay overnight in Fort St. John, excuse me, I misspoke earlier. We overnight in Fort St. John first, and then we carry on up the highway to Fort Nelson. The museum in Fort Nelson, it's so wonderful, and that's it in the top right-hand corner of your screen. A lot of history of the Alaska Highway. There's some stuffed and mounted northern animals, including an albino white moose, which I've always found really, really interesting. Very rare, but they actually have a cow moose stuffed and mounted in the museum. And gentlemen, perhaps especially, an absolutely fabulous antique car display and antique machinery display in the back as well too. So it is absolutely wonderful. I can't say enough how great it is. One more thing I want to mention on the screen, I'll have to be careful. I'll talk for 15 minutes on every slide here, Cindy, but I do want to mention the photo specifically in the center of the screen at the bottom as well too. Another one of our overnights headed up the Alaska Highway is Watson Lake, Yukon. And this is pretty fascinating. There is an interesting attraction in Watson Lake called the Signpost Forest. And you're looking at the official entrance to the Signpost Forest. Gosh, with the pandemic, I haven't been to Alaska for a couple of years, so I don't have an update for you on how many signs are in the Signpost Forest now, but it grows annually. Cindy, you can probably look it up for me while I'm chatting away here if you like. But when the Alaska Highway was being built, there was an American soldier by the name of Lindley. And Lindley was from Danville, Illinois. He got injured somehow somehow. I've never known what happened to him, but while he was injured, he was assigned the job of doing repairs on some of the signs that were being built along the road. And so just because he was homesick, he decided to make his own sign. And he didn't put his name on it. It just said Danville, Illinois. And it said how many miles it was to home from Watson Lake, Yukon. And he put up a sign. And then it caught on. And now there are literally thousands of signs in the Signpost Forest. And every time I'm there, I wish I could stay for about 3 hours and just read the signs. And we never have that much time. But the group does have time to go into the Signpost Forest, and you will see everything. You will see elaborately made signs that people went to a lot of effort to make before they left home. And then maybe right next to it, you'll see a sign that you know was taken out of somebody's RV. And all it is a cookie sheet. They scratched their name into it and where they were from and put it up in the Signpost Forest. And the rule is, as long as the sign is legible, it's left up. And once the sign is no longer legible, then it's taken down. For the 50th anniversary of the Alaska Highway, Carl Lindley and his wife came back to Watson Lake, Yukon. They put up a new sign. The old one is long since gone. And when Carl Lindley passed away some years ago, they took Carl Lindley's own sign and they put it inside the visitor center. So it's a really lovely story. And today you can still see that original sign. And today there's literally thousands of signs in the Watson Lake Signpost Forest. Okay, moving on to our next slide, everyone. I mentioned the Midnight Dome in Dawson City, and that's what you're looking at up in the top left-hand corner of your screen. So we'll talk a little bit about the city of Whitehorse later, because we do stay in Whitehorse going north, and we also stop there again on the all-coach tour coming back down again as well too. So we'll skip over Whitehorse for now. We're actually going to leave the Alaska Highway for a little while and going up to Dawson City, which, by the way, I would easily rate as one of my favoriteest places in Canada. We're going to take the North Klondike Highway, and truly it kind of feels a little bit like stepping back in time. This is another incredible part of the history of the Yukon, and the Yukon shouldn't be overshadowed. Sometimes we talk about Alaska just because it's so stunningly beautiful more than we talk about the Yukon, but the Yukon really is just as beautiful as well, and we're blessed to have it as part of Canada. The Klondike Gold Rush is a fascinating part of our history as Canadians, and we'll touch on that a little bit more in just a moment. But looking at the top left-hand corner of the screen, that is a view from the Midnight Dome. It is a mountaintop, only about driving slow with a motor coach, it's no more than 20 minutes from the time we leave the hotel. It's a windy road, and you can drive right to the top of Dome Mountain for spectacular views. 2 mountain ranges. You see the Ogilvie and Richardson ranges of mountains. Below you, you see the historical town of Dawson City. You see the convergence of 2 rivers, the Yukon and Klondike rivers, and you see the gold tailings left behind by those gold dredges as well too. So we take our groups up for a view from the Midnight Dome. The history of the Klondike Gold Rush, again, I'll try and be very brief, but back in 1897 is when George Carmack unearthed an incredible pan of gold. And word got out on George Carmack's find, and it unleashed the Klondike Gold Rush. You'll learn about some of the key players, people who were really instrumental, some Native folks, some white folk too, Tagish Charlie, Skookum Jim, some of the names that shouldn't be forgotten that played a pivotal role in the beginning of the gold rush. That little creek that gold was discovered on was called Rabbit Creek, but it was renamed Bonanza Creek. And when word got out of what was happening up in the Yukon Territory, thousands of people began to flock to Dawson City. And by 1898, the Klondike Gold Rush was officially underway. And it really is a fascinating story. That's just a little tip of it. But just below it, in the bottom left-hand screen, is a picture of some WestWorld folks panning for gold, and of course, you too will have your opportunity to pan for gold in the Klondike and relive that history. The center bottom picture is Miles Canyon. That's actually just outside of Whitehorse, so we will be stopping at Miles Canyon. That was definitely inspiration for one of my favorite writers. His name was Robert Service, and some of you listening tonight know one of Robert Service's most beautiful poems called The Spell of the Yukon. Robert Service loved to walk and formulate poems in his head while he was out hiking, and it's said that Miles Canyon was definitely part of the inspiration for the poem The Spell of the Yukon. If we go over to the right-hand side of the screen, in Whitehorse, actually, we do have a chance to visit one of the old paddle wheelers as well. That is the SS Klondike that we're looking at. So you'll learn a bit of the history of paddle wheelers on the Yukon River. The SS Klondike is on display with Parks Canada in Whitehorse. The SS Keno is actually also on display up in Dawson City as well, too. Yeah, you're looking at some of the architecture, that yellow and green building. That's actually the grocery store that you're looking at in Dawson City. But Dawson City is a National Historic Site, not just some buildings in town. The entire town is a National Historic Site. In my travels, I have never been anywhere that so authentically recreates another time in history. And when you are in Dawson City, it really feels, it's pretty magical. It feels a lot like you have stepped back to another time. It feels like 1898. They have certain restrictions there. You can build a new building, but if you do, it has to look like 1898. And many, if memory serves me, I want to say it's close to 40 buildings in Dawson City are original, and they are under Parks Canada management, rather. There are no paved sidewalks. They're all wooden board sidewalks. And also there's no pavement allowed in Dawson City. It's still all dirt streets, just like it was in 1898. And then finally, the last photo that you're looking at in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen, that's a diamond tooth Gertie's. And of course, if you're going to the Yukon Territory and Alaska too, it's important that you do get to experience the can-can dancers. It's a lot of fun. And those dancers are pretty professional at Diamond Tooth Gertie's. Diamond Tooth Gertie's is actually a historical building, but it's a casino too. So it's a casino or gambling hall, I guess you could call it. It's a lot of fun. You can eat there as well if you like. But for our WestWorld groups, we have tickets for you to go to the show at Diamond Tooth Gertie's. There's 3 shows a night. So if you stay, you find yourself, playing slots for a couple hours or not even, you can stick around for the second show. I've never been to the late show. I've heard they get a little more risque as the night goes on, but I'm usually in bed, I'm afraid, by that time. But the dancing is absolutely fantastic. It is. And when we leave Dawson City, we will be making our way back to where we're going to join up with the Alaska Highway at a town called Tok. But first, before we do that, we're saying goodbye to Dawson City. We're actually leaving town by crossing the Yukon River. There's a ferry to get across the river and then out of town. And then we are beginning a journey before we go back to the Alaska Highway on a very, very special road. It's called the Top of the World Highway. And it's aptly named the Top of the World because you feel like you are looking down from the top of the world. And the views of the mountains are unbelievably beautiful. I can't tell you enough how beautiful the scenery is on this tour. If you love history, you're going to love the tour. And if you love nature, you're going to love it. And if you love beautiful scenery, you are really going to love it. So many times I've said to my groups, and I know they always agree with me, every day you think the scenery can't get more beautiful, and every day, day after day, it just does. So we have the Top of the World Highway to look forward to. And I know Cindy would agree with me here. I think for anyone who's been to the Yukon and Alaska, a favorite stop is Chicken, Alaska. And that's what you're looking at in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen, everyone. We don't take you to the outskirts of Chicken, we take you to beautiful downtown Chicken, Alaska. And I'll just tell you that for starters, but it is so much fun and it's really special. And just a fun little tidbit about Chicken, Alaska. And this is a true story. When the first pioneers in the area settled Chicken, they didn't mean to name it Chicken. They wanted to name it ptarmigan because there were so many ptarmigan in the area. It's funny, but it's true. Nobody knew how to spell ptarmigan, so they called it Chicken instead. And that's how Chicken, Alaska got its name. The other photos that you're looking at in the screen here is all of Fairbanks, Alaska. So we say goodbye the top of the World Highway at Tok. Before Tok, actually, we've reconnected with the Alaska Highway on mile 1422. And on the all coach tour, you will actually get another taste of the Alaska Highway as you come back down south. If you're on the coach and cruise tour, you do not, but on the all coach tour, you'll actually spend a little more time on the Alaska Highway later on in the tour. Pardon me. Again, Tok, mile 1422 of the Alaska Highway, and then unofficially, the Richardson Highway is still part of it going up to Fairbanks. No trip to Fairbanks would be complete without a stop at a little town called North Pole, Alaska. Only about 30 minutes outside of Fairbanks. You see the big Santa sign in the bottom left, corner of your screen, and Santa Claus house behind it. Often Santa's there. You can sit in his lap, tell him what you want for Christmas if you like to, but a lot of our folks traveling with us on WestWorld really enjoy the stop at Santa Claus house and do a bit of shopping there for sure. In the center of the screen is the Golden Heart Review that I mentioned a little while ago. And this is a really fun live show. So we're really happy that we have that included for you, the Golden Heart Review. So you'll be tapping your toe and singing along and laughing at the skits. And it's a really good time. So you'll get some of the history of the Fairbanks area as well, too. And just have a toe tapping good time there for sure. No trip to Alaska would be complete. So of course we've entered the beautiful state of Alaska at this point now. When we've left Dawson City, we're entering Alaska before we arrive in Fairbanks, what they call the Great Land. And truly it is the Great Land, Alyeska. And then eventually that became simply Alaska. No trip to Alaska would be complete without a wonderful salmon bake. I'm getting hungry looking at that right now, that salmon. Oh, it's so good. And there's other fish as well. I think if I remember, I think there's cod and halibut too. And for you non-seafood lovers, there's ribs too. There's beautiful salads and it's just so good. So we take you out for a salmon bake in Fairbanks. And then a really special part of our stay in Fairbanks is the top left-hand corner of your screen. That is a paddle wheeler boat, and that is called the Riverboat Discovery. And we are going to have such a fun afternoon. Depending on the itinerary, it can happen to be a morning tour. Quite often for WestWorld, it's an afternoon tour, and it takes up, probably at least 3 hours. We're on this paddle wheeler, and it is so much fun. You get to see some really, really cool stuff, even just from the deck of the paddle wheeler. At one point, they have a demonstration of a float plane taking off and landing. Or a bush plane, rather, a bush plane, I meant to say. Also, some of you, I'm sure, I hope, listening tonight are familiar with the Iditarod, that famous dog sled race. One of the legends of the Iditarod was a female musher, and her name was Susan Butcher. Tell you more about Susan Butcher in a second, but a couple interesting things about Alaska. One is that there's an incredibly high percentage of people who have pilot's licenses in Alaska. Another interesting thing about Alaska is men are very, very outnumbered by women in Alaska. So one of the famous quotes about Alaska is they say, where the odds are good, but the goods are odd. And And yeah, so, but a couple of the people who were famous champions in the Iditarod dog sled race were women. One was, a lady, I just forgot her name now, Libby, I've forgotten her last name, but probably the most famous woman to ever win the Iditarod was a woman by the name of Susan Butcher. And therefore, another one of the mottos of Alaska is Alaska, where men are men, but women win the Iditarod. And Susan Butcher won the Iditarod 4 times. And sadly, she passed away far too young. She was only in her 50s when she passed away. And I believe it was 2006 when Susan Butcher died of cancer. But she was well loved and well known, and a famous dog musher. By the way, dog mushing is the state sport of Alaska. We see Susan Butcher's dog yard. It's actually right on the shore of the Chena River, where we're sailing on that riverboat cruise. And her husband, her widow, Dave Monson, he's still there. Her 2 daughters are grown now, and they're still part of the family business. And it's usually Dave or one of the daughters that does the presentation on shore. They're mic'd so we can hear everything from where we're sitting on the riverboat. And then we also have a chance to get off the riverboat and tour a native village and learn more about the Alaskan culture. You don't hear the word Eskimo used as much in Canada anymore, but believe me, you do in Alaska. So you'll hear about the Yupik Eskimo, different Eskimo groups in Alaska, and learn about their culture. It's fantastic. It's really fascinating. So that's a great half-day tour on the Riverboat Discovery. And as I say, I'm sorry, it's really hard to not be incredibly enthusiastic, because there's just so much that is so much fun on this tour. As I say, Alaska is known as the Great Land, and it really is. The mountain scenery is absolutely spectacular. The picture that you're looking at, excuse me, on the left-hand side of your screen is an unbelievable mountain. It towers above the other mountains. It is called Denali. Well, some people still call it Mount McKinley as well, too, although the name has officially been changed to Denali now, which I'm really glad it has, because it seems more respectful to call it by its original name, and it means the Great One, and truly it is. Denali, or Mount McKinley if you like, is over 20,000 feet tall, and it absolutely towers above all the other mountains. It's absolutely incredible. You have to be really lucky to see it, and I'll be honest with you, there have been lots of years I've done this tour, and I haven't seen Denali, but I'm doing pretty good. I think I've had at least 6, maybe even 7 trips where I've seen it. So you got to say a little prayer, cross your fingers that you're going to see Denali, but it absolutely is remarkable. We are going to be passing through the state park on our way from Fairbanks to Anchorage. And we're actually going to stop for lunch in the state park. There's lots of great photo pullouts. We're even going to have a little picnic that day at one of those nice rest areas. And that's going to be our best chance in that area. Basically a couple hours we're going to be driving, where if the mountain is out, as they say, we'll have a chance to see the mountains, and God willing, have a chance to take pictures of the most incredible mountain in Alaska. They call it the 30% club. Your odds are about 30% of seeing the top of Denali. So yeah, it is. It's pretty spectacular, that's for sure. That center picture on the right-hand side of your screen is an overlook of Anchorage. I almost wish we had a bunch of pictures of Anchorage. We just have the one to show you, but it's a beautiful city. It really is. And the city of Anchorage is framed by the Chugach Range of mountains. So it's really lovely. You see the Chugach Range just behind the city skyline there. So we overnight in Anchorage. We do a wonderful city tour with a wonderful local step-on guide. And the building that you're looking at in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen, that's actually actually one of our stops in Anchorage. It's called Alaska Wildberry Products. Oh, I stock up on chocolate every time I go to Alaska Wildberry Products. They actually are famous for filling their chocolates with jellies made from different types of local wild berries. So hence Alaska Wildberry Products. And another thing they're known for is a chocolate waterfall. So it's not a waterfall, it's a chocolate fall. I don't remember now how many feet it is. It's probably about 10 feet high or so, but it's inside and you can take pictures of the chocolate fall at Alaska Wildberry Products. So a lot of fun. And we make some great stops in Anchorage on our city tour as well. And then on the all coach tour, everyone, we make our way to the city of Valdez, but we're actually going to do a one-day boat cruise. So those of you joining us on the coach and cruise tour, you're going to be doing the cruise on the Inside Passage, and we'll touch on that briefly. Of course, the Taste of Alaska tour, if you're doing that one, you're having a shorter version of the trip. And then on the all coach tour, pardon me, you've got this one-day cruise across Prince William Sound. So that's the photos you're looking at there. You see that stunning view of Prince William Sound. And there's two pictures, bottom left and top right, of the Stan Stephen ship. And the company's called Stan Stephen that we cruise on. And it is, again, I can't tell you enough how spectacularly beautiful it is. There's really no words to describe it. My experiences in Prince William Sound, I've seen puffins, and I've definitely seen orcas as well in Prince William Sound. So it is really a magical day crossing Prince William Sound over to Valdez, Alaska. Yeah. By the way, I should say, they don't talk that much about the famous oil spill, the Exxon Valdez. Yeah, it's not something they really like to talk about. It is something that we think about, of course, too. But I find my experiences in Valdez, it's honestly not something that they just naturally bring up, I guess, unless you specifically ask to hear more about it. So, yeah, part of history, that's for sure. So, yeah. Now, what you're looking at here, everyone, is we are looking at a couple photos of Skagway and a picture of Carcross, Yukon as well, that brightly colored building in the center of your screen. That's a stop that we make heading to Skagway, shortened from Caribou Crossing, and they called it Carcross instead. And on the right-hand side of your screen, there's actually two photos showing that rail trip. It's a narrow gauge railroad. Again, it's called the White Pass and Yukon route. There are a couple of tunnels that you go through. I think the most kind of heart-stopping moment on the tour or on the rail trip that day is when you come through this dark tunnel and you emerge from the tunnel and you're in a wooden trestle bridge. And I'm not exaggerating this. If you are sitting by the window or you're outside on the vestibule at that point, you are looking, no word of a lie, close to 1,000 feet down into the valley below you. So it literally takes your breath away. And I love to be outside staring down when we go over the wooden trestle bridge, but the scenery is unbelievable. For those of you who are a little bit afraid of heights, believe me, as WestWorld guides, we'll let you know what side of the train you should sit on. And if you want the best views, we'll let you know what side of the train to sit on. And again, the history, they'll share a lot of the history with you, commentary on that train ride, which is really incredible. And one thing that you'll see, we will literally go right past a spot where it says Trail of 98, and you can see a little bit of that trail that still remains today, that those gold seekers were passing over, heading towards the Klondike gold fields for that incredible gold rush. Skagway is a bit like Dawson City. To be honest with you, perhaps a little bit more touristy than Dawson City, but incredibly historical, and it's absolutely gorgeous. So we visit Skagway the day that we go on the train journey. Our coach will come to pick us up in Skagway. And of course, Skagway is also often a port of call on the Alaska cruise. So that is a couple pictures on the left, and then the bottom right-hand corner, you're looking at beautiful Skagway, Alaska, too. Okay, moving on. This is the last slide, I believe, on the all coach tour, and then we're going to touch just very briefly a little bit more on the cruise portion of the tour for you as well, for those of you thinking about the coach and cruise tour. That's Mr. PG on the left-hand side of the screen. We do overnight in Prince George, and he's their big mascot, I guess you could say, Mr. PG. We do overnight in the city of Whitehorse once again. So that is an aerial shot of Whitehorse in the top right-hand corner of your screen. So as we're coming back down south, I probably should have started with the right-hand side of the screen, forgive me, but we'll be making our way from Whitehorse and then through Dease Lake. The photo in the center on the right-hand side is at Jade City in northern BC. We stopped there and we overnight in Dease Lake as well too. So that is again all on the Cassiar Highway as we make our way back down to Prince George and through Smithers, and then finally eventually back down to Edmonton as well too, as we continue overnighting and making our way back at the end of our 20-day tour. But I did say I would say a word on Whitehorse because I didn't do that earlier. So Whitehorse is a beautiful city. It really is. Of course, the capital of the Yukon Territory. The former capital was Dawson City, and they were not very happy when Whitehorse was eventually chosen as the new capital of the Yukon. It's a beautiful city, though. As I mentioned earlier, we have a chance to see Miles Canyon on the edge of the city. We also have a chance to tour the SS Klondike paddle wheeler too. And the name Whitehorse, well, before the dam was built, the water in the rapids was so wild through Miles Canyon. It looked like maybe they had a little bit of an active imagination, but the gold seekers said it looked like the white manes of horses in the river, and that's how Whitehorse Yukon got its name. Okay, and then just quickly, everyone, we're nearly finished here. What you're looking at is just some shots of ports of call in Alaska. So on the left-hand side of your screen, that is the capital of Alaska. That is the city of Juneau. And by the way, if you are joining us on the coach and cruise tour, I know something a lot of us as guides like to do. I certainly do when I am guiding this tour is a little walking tour. You can join us, your guide, on a walking tour around the ports of call, or you might want to do something a little more elaborate. You know, maybe you want to do a whale watching excursion or something. There's so many excursions that you can choose while you're cruising. But if you just want to join us on a little walking tour, we do that too. And of course, we have a walking tour planned for you in the beautiful city of Juneau. And Juneau's a lot of fun. There's a fun little pub there called the Red Dog Saloon. You can go, and I like to belly up to the bar and eat my crab cakes there and listen to the ragtime kid playing its piano in the corner. Of course, it's all a sawdust floor, and that's a lot of fun in Juneau. So yeah, lots to do there. Beautiful views from the top of the mountain. You can take a really fun little gondola ride. It's a tramway up Mount Roberts. So again, just so much to do. And in the top right-hand corner of the screen, you're looking at another picture, a better picture actually of Skagway, Alaska. Talking about famous pubs, that's the Red Onion that you're looking at in the top left-hand corner. The Red Onion has actually served a few different purposes, but I'm afraid I have to tell you, it was one of the most famous brothels in Alaska during the gold rush. So I'll leave it there, I think. I won't elaborate on any details, but you can take a brothel tour actually at the Red Onion. Or if you like, you can just sit down in the bar and have a meal and have an Alaskan beer. They have some beautiful, really beautiful locally brewed Alaska beers actually as well too. They certainly do. Yeah, so again, incredibly historical architecture as well. So in that shot, I know it's hard to see, it's not that big, but you're looking down towards the Arctic Brotherhood Hall. 8,800 driftwood sticks make up the facade of the the building, which is today the visitor center. And then you see that golden dome. That's the Golden North Hotel just at the back of that shot. And then going down quickly to the bottom right-hand corner of the screen, you're looking at our cruise ship. It's called the Radiance of the Seas with Royal Caribbean is the ship that we'll be on for our next tour and cruise up to Alaska. As I was saying, there are several many actually, different excursions that you can sign up for if you wish to. You can pay for excursions and do those in our ports of call, and they're a lot of fun. They're good. Some are less expensive. You have things that are more elaborate if you want to do a helicopter trip or a big whale watching trip, but there's lots of options. There's excursions you can just sign up for right on the dock in the ports of call too, and actually save yourself a bit of money by doing that too. And then you have cruise life as well too. So the meals, the entertainment, all the fun, and a beautiful day cruising Hubbard Glacier as well too. And that's day cruising where you don't actually get off the ship, but you spend the day with your jacket on the upper decks of the ship and just enjoy cruising through the Hubbard Glacier area. It's absolutely spectacular. Again, there's just not enough I can say about the scenery and how incredible it is. This shot here, everyone, Cindy's got some really nice pictures for us. She's included here. I really love her picture of Creek Street in the top left-hand corner. I'll be brief. I'll just mention a couple of the slides that you're looking at here, but there is so much history. And of course, the brothels were a part of the history during the Klondike Gold Rush. There's no question about that. Creek Street was famous during the gold rush as where all the brothels were actually located. But nowadays they're all gift shops, and it's fun just to walk down to Creek Street and have a look. In Ketchikan, Alaska, where Creek Street is located, they didn't have enough land to build. And so they drove pilings down into the water and created surfaces to put buildings on. And a lot of Ketchikan is actually built that way. And so you can really see that in the top left-hand corner of the screen, how the buildings are actually built over top of the water. So it's pretty incredible. And it's actually a small town. It's quite easy to do a walk on a little walking tour around Ketchikan. Same thing with Skagway. And I am so pleased. You see some pictures of the incredible scenery there. We are actually stopping on this cruise. One of the cruises, one of the directions, we stop at the Russian capital of Alaska, which is absolutely stunning. It is the town of Sitka, Alaska. And a place that I love so much is Icy Strait Point. And you see the sign there just in the bottom right-hand corner with the cruise ship behind it. Icy Strait Point is actually where they had an old salmon cannery, and there's fun things you can do in Icy Strait while we're stopped there, or down a beautiful wooden boardwalk right along the water on the inside passage is the native village called Hoona. And I love that place so much. I was just joking with Leanne and Cindy earlier today. I said, I love Hoona so much. I've always wanted to buy property there. So, who knows? Maybe someday I'll get to retire in Hoona, Alaska, but it's extremely remote, but it is just so beautiful, so peaceful, and so beautiful. And you seafood lovers listening tonight, the salmon, the chowder, it's endless. It really is. So it's fun just to sit in a little hotel in Hoona and just have seafood chowder and look out over the spectacular scenery. And the last slide here, everyone, that you're looking at is, again, just a chance for us to talk a tiny bit as I finish up this evening with my part of the presentation on the spectacular scenery of the Inside Passage. If we're lucky, you might see whales as well. We often do. I'm kind of unlucky with whales. You want to stay away from me if I happen to be with you on the tour. I'm not a good luck thing at all when it comes to whale watching. I'm just not. But but it is quite often that our groups do see whales, and someone will say to me, did you see the whales this morning? And I'll say no, but it is quite common to see humpbacks, even from the cruise ship as well too. So a couple of really great pictures we have there of whale watching. And I really love that picture on the right-hand side of the screen of the inside passage itself. And let me just say, for those of you who haven't cruised a lot, anybody out there listening tonight who has not, this is this is a really calm cruise. If someone ever says to me, if we were going to do our very first cruise, what would you recommend? My answer is always the same. I'm always going to tell you the Alaska cruise, because it tends to have calm waters, because we're in sheltered waters, not the whole time, but almost the whole time. We're in sheltered waters in the inside passage. So it's a really great starter cruise in that sense as well too. So, and it's absolutely beautiful. It really is. So I would like to end my part of the presentation tonight, everyone, with a few words of a great poet. I'm always fascinated, you know, some of the great writers that were so inspired by the North. In the Yukon Territory, up in Dawson City, there's a street called Writers Row, because there were 3 great writers who had homes on 8th Street in Dawson City. I'm sure you know the name Pierre Burton, and I certainly hope you know the name Jack London. And another of those 3 great writers is a writer that I have loved and admired for the better part of my life, and his name was Robert Service. And I want to share a few words with you tonight that go like this. There's a land where the mountains are nameless and the rivers all run God knows where. There are lives that are erring and aimless, and deaths that just hang by a hair. There are hardships that nobody reckons. There are valleys unpeopled and still. There's a land, oh, it beckons and beckons, and I want to go back, and I will. It's the great big broad land way up yonder. It's the forest where silence has lease. It's the beauty that thrills you with wonder. It's the stillness that fills you with peace. Those are just a few short lines from a poem called The Spell of the Yukon by Robert Service. And I'd like to close with those words tonight. Thank you, everyone. It was an absolute pleasure to share a little bit with you tonight about our Alaska Yukon tour. And thank you for joining us.
Oh, Coral, that was great. Your enthusiasm and knowledge of Alaska and the Yukon just never ceases to amaze me. That was absolutely fabulous. I totally enjoyed myself so much, having been to Alaska. You know, you do such a great job of expressing what Alaska and the Yukon is all about. Now, you did ask me to look up the question of about how many signs there are at the Signpost Forest. So I did do a little research there, and there's over 80,000 signs. So, yeah. So again, you know, we'd like to open up to questions here. Please, anybody, if you do have questions, type them into the Q&A box located on your screen, and we're more than happy to answer any questions that you might have. I know one question that did pop up for me was you know, the 30% chance of seeing Mount Denali. You know, why?
Oh, that's actually a really good question, Cindy. The mountain is so high, as I was saying, over 20,000 feet tall. It creates its own weather system. And that's why so often it's actually shrouded in cloud, just because it is creating its own weather system. So, yeah. And when it clears off and the mountain comes out, it's incredible.
Yes, well, you know, it's the luck of the draw, I guess, you know, hopefully, you said 30% chance, and hopefully we go through on a clear day and everybody gets a great view of Mount Denali.
And now, if you get lucky, then you have to buy the T-shirt or the drink coaster or something. You can buy everything that says 30% club.
Okay, there you go. I had a lady here asking if we could put up the screen with the outline of the 3 tours and the dates here. So it is very difficult to move back into the presentation. To flip back through, I think I'd probably give everybody a headache. But if you do have any particular questions in regards to it, perhaps, you know, there's something we can answer for you. Let's see. Glenda, please. So, just send us your question and we're more than happy to answer that for you. It said, will the Alaska tour cruise be offered in 2023? That's a question from Marilyn. Marilyn, I'm happy to say that yes. The Alaska program that we do, we run annually. So it is part of our classic tour lineup, and we will be operating in 2023 as well, yes. So if anybody else has any other questions out there, we're more than happy to answer them. If we end up moving forward here and closing the question section, you can always send us an email and we'd be more than happy to answer those questions for you.
Cindy, if you like, while we're waiting to see if there's any more questions, maybe I can help answer that question about the route a little bit. So regardless of whether it's a coach and cruise or the all coach, typically, and of course there's a reverse itinerary with the coach and cruise tour too, but basically just to give you an overview, we'd be overnighting in Edmonton, making our way up through Grand Prairie and then up to Dawson Creek, overnighting in Fort St. John, Fort Nelson, crossing the border into the Yukon, overnighting in Watson Lake, going up to Whitehorse and then up to Dawson City, over the top of the world into Fairbanks and then down to Anchorage. And then of course we'd start cruising on the cruise tour. We would make our way to our pickup spot. That is typically Seward or Whittier, where we board the cruise ship generally. On the all coach tour, we take that one-day cruise over to Valdez through Prince William Sound. And then from there, make our way, Cindy, you can help me out here, I believe, down back to Whitehorse, and then making our way down the Cassiar Highway, overnighting in Dease Lake, and then down to Prince George and back to Edmonton again. So if that helps at all.
Yeah, that's really good. Also, you can, Glenda, just send us an email. We're more than happy to send you a copy of the flat sheet. As a matter of fact, we will be following up with everybody in a couple of days that will have a link to all the information, pardon me, for all three tours. We do have another question here from Sharon, and she's asking how many guests on each tour? And that's always a good question. We have always a maximum of 50 passengers on all of our coaches, and our coaches are carry usually about 56 passengers, so there's always extra seats on the coach. You're never going to feel crowded. And Koral, I can maybe let you speak to that a little bit as well.
Sure, yeah. The coach and cruise tour sometimes maxes out a little bit of a lower number too, just depending on the number of cabin space and availability as well too. So depending on our cabin availability on the cruise ship, that would of course affect the coach tour as well. So I know I've sometimes taken the tour where we're maybe like high 30s or around 40 people or so, and that all coach tour is actually really popular. So yeah, it can definitely tend to max out even up to 50 sometimes too. So
yes, another good question that was asked is, are there pickups along the trip through Saskatchewan and Alberta? Absolutely, there is. We'll start in Regina and Saskatchewan, traveling up to Edmonton. So along that route, if there's, we can always do pickups along that route as well. Yes, those arrangements can be made. That's a great question. Shirley has a question here. Do we stop at the hot springs?
We sure do. It's wonderful. It's on the Alaska Highway. It's actually in northern BC. It's before we cross the border into the Yukon even. It's called Leonard Hot Springs. And we spend a bit of time there because we actually do a picnic lunch at Leonard Hot Springs, and definitely give you time to go for a dip in the water too. But anybody listening tonight who's not familiar with Leonard Hot Springs, it's actually a natural hot spring. So there's some rudimentary change rooms and washroom facilities. but it's pretty natural and it's absolutely beautiful. So yeah, we do spend at least a couple hours, I guess, at Leonard Hot Springs. I just realized something else, Cindy. I can't believe I forgot to even mention the wildlife on this tour. I never thought of it until I was looking at the picture of the bald eagle that's on the screen right now. We typically do see a lot of wildlife on this tour, everyone. Certainly we see bison along the Alaska Highway. I've never done this tour and not seen lots of bald eagles. That's pretty common. It's extremely rare to not see black bears, usually in the double digits, how many black bears we're going to see. If we're a little bit luckier, some years we see grizzly bears as well on the tour. Very good chance we're going to see caribou, certainly. We might see wolves. That has happened as well too. That's pretty special. Doll sheep in Alaska, the white sheep in Alaska. So those are just a few of the wildlife species that we have a very, very good chance of seeing.
Oh, good. Well, thanks, Coral. That's great to know. And yeah, we got so busy talking. So let's see, there's so much to see on these tours, to Alaska and the Yukon. It's hard to mention everything. Now, we do have a question here from Glenda as well, asking, are meals provided daily? And Glenda, that varies from tour to tour. Each tour will have different meals included. Of course, on the cruise ship, all of your meals are included once you're on board the cruise ship. And that information would be all provided in the link that we will email you in with the next couple of days to cover off all of that info. And Marilyn has asked, this is a great question too. I know many people ask this question, Coral, and I know that you will have the answer for this too. What is the usual departure and arrival time on bus days? And that is a great question.
Yeah,
yes.
It really is a good question. I would say with a lot of WestWorld Tours, 8 a.m. is pretty typical for departure time. Some days 8:30, which is always nice too. And some days even 9 a.m. If we were just going, say, for example, in a city tour, like say we're starting our first full day in Fairbanks or our first full day in Anchorage, then it's quite likely going to be a 9 a.m. Departure. It often is when it's a city tour day. But some days, even traveling days, would be 8:30. 8 is quite typical for a departure time. And there can be days definitely where we have a long drive or we have a time zone change. It can happen too, but it definitely can happen where we'll have the occasional 7:30 departure as well.
Yeah, again, it varies on the day's schedule too, like you said, for sure. Yeah. And there's always some free time built into the tours as well. You'll have a free morning or a free afternoon, or you do your own thing. So another question asked here by Patricia is, what clothing would we need to take? Jackets, etc.
That's actually a really good question, Patricia, especially for a tour like this. On the land portion of the tour, or if you're doing just the all coach tour, of course, footwear, very casual, running shoes, maybe hikers. I love my Skechers, sports sandals, things like that are good. And then for your body, layers. Yeah, it really is about layers. I would always take a jacket that's repellent to rain and wind on this tour. I take some layers too. I take a good fleece along. Take a nice fleece jacket if you need something cuddly and cozy to wear. It's good to have that. Very casual clothes though, really. On the all coach tour, it is very casual. There's a farewell dinner. People like to dress up a little bit sometimes for that, but it's certainly not compulsory that you do. And on the cruise, those of you who are thinking about doing the coach and cruise, a little more diverse because you want to have casual things for land, but you certainly have opportunities to dress up a bit in the evenings on the cruise ship as well. However, that being said, I am finding that the cruise lines all seem to be starting to tend more towards the casual as well too, where it's not, you don't have to be in your finery, and they don't make a big deal about men having a black jacket and tie on for dinner as much as they used to. So, and I think a lot of people appreciate that as well, that it's not quite of a big deal to dress up as it used to be on cruise ships.
Excellent. Thank you, Coral, for answering that. So again, I just want to let everybody know that we will be emailing you in a day or two that will have a link to the itinerary, for this tour, all of our Alaska programs. And you can always reach out to us for more information on this tour and others. They are all available, more information on our website at westworldtours.com. You can email us at information@westworldtours.com. And you can follow us on Facebook, or you can get a hold of us, contact your local travel agent always. They're very familiar with our product as well and can answer many, many, many of your questions. I really want to say thank you again to Koral for joining us this evening, and thank you to everyone for spending the evening with us. We hope you found our presentation informative, and thank you again, and have a great evening and enjoy the rest of your evening. Koral, anything else that you would like to add?
Yeah, I just